great green spaces, more than tasty food, and a pleasant combination of tiny houses and buildings that tickle the clouds. Home of a climate as infamous as iconic and of a headquarters of world-renowned companies, it is the gateway to the northernmost state in the country and home to fans who have broken more than one record, in part thanks to having the best defense in history among their ranks. Welcome to Seattle. Located on the isthmus formed by Lake Washington and the Puget Sound in the extreme northwest of the United States is the picturesque city of Seattle, the largest and most populated urbanization on the entire north coast of the Pacific Ocean. With a total population of more than 3.2 million people, it ranks 15th among the most populated cities in the country, and by a big difference is Washington State's #1 in that category. Seattle is known as the Emerald City, referring to the lush trees that are located in its surroundings. The city is famous for its unusual location and infamous climate, which gave it its two other distinctive nicknames, the Gateway to Alaska and the Rain City. The first is because it is the largest city in the United States that is geographically closest to the state of Alaska. The second is quite logical. Seattle registers incredibly high levels of rainfall by North American parameters. The fact is that in the city, it rains on average about 152 days a year, registering almost 1,000 millimeters of rain each year and reaching peaks of more than 200 millimeters in a month. Just like any other great American city, Seattle offers a large number of tourist attractions and iconic places of North American culture. If you are in the city looking for fresh products, or you're just a fan of visiting unique places, the Pike Place Market is the ideal place for you. It is a fruit and vegetable market opened in 1907, whose main attraction is its independent nature. The Pike Place is adjacent to Elliott Bay and is the oldest farmers market in the United States. More than 10 million people visit there annually, making it the most visited tourist attraction in the city and the 33rd most visited in the world. In addition, Seattle has numerous museums such as the Museum of Flight, the Museum of History and Industry, and the Burke Museum of Natural History, among others. On the other hand, the city has a very beautiful aquarium opened in 1977 and located at the Pier 59 on Elliott Bay, not to mention the Great Wheel of Seattle, a world tour more than 50 meters high located on the same site. Despite all these tourist attractions, Seattle owes a lot on a cultural level to its most iconic building, the Space Needle. It is a 184-meter high tower and built in 1962. Prepared to withstand winds of more than 300 kilometers per hour, the Space Needle has a revolving restaurant at the top and has become not only an unmistakable emblem of the region but a landmark in modern culture, appearing on television series such as Frasier and Grey's Anatomy. Without a doubt, the tower represents an enormous amount of attention when it comes to Seattle, being one of the most photographed places on the entire United States West Coast. Music also plays an important role in the historical life of the city. Numerous world-renowned vocal artists and bands are originally from Seattle. Between 1918 and 1951, a huge number of jazz clubs were established in the area, facilitating the rise to stardom of such figures as Quincy Jones, Ernestine Anderson, and Ray Charles. Seattle was also the hometown of guitarist Jimi Hendrix, as well as the birthplace of rock bands such as Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, Foo Fighters, and Nirvana, among others. Also, one of the city's top musical ambassadors today is rapper Ben Haggerty, better known as Macklemore. The city is a very important port in the region and is the location of an extensive list of multinational companies. Napster, Getty Images, Amazon, and Starbucks, among others, were founded and are based in the city. In fact, the first Starbucks, opened in 1971, is still in operations and you can visit it at the birthplace market. Other renowned companies such as United Airlines, Costco, Boeing, and Microsoft are also native to Seattle. And despite not being in the state in question, Alaska Airlines has its operations office at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. There is no doubt that the city of Seattle has a myriad of attractions waiting for you, but none compares to those involving sports activities. If you are a sports fan, Seattle is the city where you will find it all. The city is the birthplace of several basketball players with extensive NBA careers such as Nate Robinson, Jason Terry, Brandon Roy, Doug Christie, and Jamal Crawford, among others. Seattle adapted to the participation of regional teams at national level later on due to the geographic expansion of each of the most popular sports leagues in the country. Because of this, Seattle first became involved in one of the Big Four leagues only in 1967 with the appearance of the Seattle Supersonics representing the city in the NBA. The team achieved a strong success in the city and quickly became the sport reference of the state of Washington. The positive results came quickly, gaining access to the NBA Finals for the first time in 1978 when they lost to the Washington Bullets in the 7th game. However, a year later, they will take revenge on the Capital team by beating them 4-1 in the final series and taking their first and only NBA title. The Supersonics reached the final again in 1996 but could not beat the unbeatable Michael Jordan and his Chicago Bulls. In 2008, a year after having chosen superstar Kevin Durant in the NBA draft and after failing to reach an agreement with the municipal authorities on the renovation of the Key Arena, the stadium where the Supersonics played home, the team was relocated to distant Oklahoma City, where it was renamed the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Seattle Supersonics feature NBA figures such as Gus Williams, Nate McMillan, Gary Payton, Detlef Schrempf, and John Kemp, among others. Despite a fleeting appearance in 1969 of a Major League Baseball franchise known as the Seattle Pilots, the Supersonics were the city's only representatives in professional sports on a national level until 1976, as the Pilots were relocated to Milwaukee a year after debuting and became the Milwaukee Brewers. In 1976, and thanks to the third to last expansion of the NFL, the city introduced a team called the Seattle Seahawks that will play their home games at the Kingdome. The Seahawks will take 13 seasons to make their first NFL playoff appearance. A year later, in 1977, and after litigations and bids to regain a team in Major League Baseball, the Seattle Mariners made their presentation playing also at the Kingdome. So far, the Mariners are the only franchise in the city that has not been national champions, holding the record of being the only team that never played a World Series of Baseball. The Kingdome was demolished in 2000, so the Seahawks and Mariners had to search for new stadiums. The Seahawks built Seahawks Stadium, now Lumen Field, in downtown Seattle, while the Mariners built Safeco Field, now known as T-Mobile Park, very close to the football team building. Other professional sports franchises came to town much later. The third team to be present in the city was the women's basketball team, called Seattle Storm, which debuted in the 2000 WNBA season. Seattle Storm is the last national champion after winning the title in 2020 and is one of the three most winning franchises in history with 4 titles along with Minnesota Lynx and the now defunct Houston Comets. Then, in 2009, it was time for the men's soccer team, which was named after the Seattle Sounders. They debuted in the MLS in 2009 and so far they have accumulated 2 league titles in 2016 and 2019 and 7 national titles. In 2013, it was the debut of Seattle Reign, a team that will represent the city in the country's women's soccer league, known as NWSL. Furthermore, in 2018, a rugby franchise called Seattle Seawolves was established, and in 2021, the city's franchise called Seattle Kraken will debut in the NHL. The city has a large number of teams and venues where fans can come to cheer on representatives of the city. However, if there's a fan in Seattle who hasn't vibrated with the Seattle Seahawks' golden years and his fearsome defense, we can't be sure he's that much of a fan. Although the first Super Bowl in which the Seahawks were present dates back to 2005 when they lost 21-10 to the Pittsburgh Steelers in the city of Detroit, the team's golden moment came in 2010 after the franchise acquired the services of coach Pete Carroll, who had just obtained 2 championships in his 9 seasons at the helm of the USC Trojans. Carroll's qualities led the team not only to sign him a contract as head coach, but also as vice president of operations, something that earned him also being the new general manager of the franchise, something that Bill Belichick had at the time in the New England Patriots and Ron Rivera in the Washington Redskins. Carroll did not miss his chance and took action in the first draft that he had as head of a team. In it, he identified that the defense was not made of players to his liking, and notified that if the team wanted to win, they would have to think about defending better. Seattle was coming off 5 games won and 11 losses in 2009 and had to take advantage of the position it had to choose players in the draft. The Seahawks' first pick was Oklahoma State tackle Russell Okung in the 6th overall pick, but the climax of that draft came in the 14th pick, which also belonged to the team. In it, the Seattle Seahawks selected safety Earl Thomas of the University of Texas, the first of a bunch of wise decisions by Pete Carroll. But he didn't stop there. Seattle had to remain active in the 2010 draft. In the 4th round, they selected cornerback Walter Thurmond from Oregon, and in the 5th round, it was the turn of safety Cam Chancellor from Virginia Tech. In 2010, they improved the winning record compared to the previous year with 7 wins and 9 losses, but it was not what Carroll expected, so he returned to bet on the draft the following year, where he selected linebacker KJ Wright from Mississippi State in the 4th round, Stanford cornerback Richard Sherman in the 5th round, and cornerback Byron Maxwell from the fruitful Clemson University in the 6th round. Additionally, they added linebacker Malcolm Smith to his ranks in the 7th round, a player who will have a leading role in the franchise later on. However, despite the additions in defense, the team was unable to fuel on offense, so in 2011 it achieved the same record as in 2010, 7 wins, 9 losses. Carroll needed one more draft to establish a fearsome team. It was time to adjust the offense, and the quarterback position was practically headless. Matt Hasselbeck and Tarvarius Jackson had passed through the team without pain or glory, and it was time to fill that void. After further fortifying the defense with players like Bruce Irvin and Bobby Wagner, selected in the first 2 rounds, it was time for Pete Carroll to make his first big offensive move. In the 3rd round, the Seattle Seahawks selected University of Wisconsin quarterback Russell Wilson to take over the offense. And boy, did it work for them. Wilson was coming into a talented offense with figures like running back Marshawn Lynch and wide receivers like Golden Tate, drafted in 2010, and Doug Baldwin, who was not selected by either team in the 2011 draft and was taken over by Seattle at the free agency. The Seahawks were already a team to fear. This was evidenced in the first season where Carroll had all the players he wanted. In 2012, the record changed significantly and the team recorded 11 wins and 5 losses, returning to the playoff where they would beat Washington in the wildcard round, but they will fall to Atlanta in the divisional. However, this year everyone could see the emergence of one of the toughest teams of the decade and one of the most explosive and successful defenses in history. Its magnificence earned it the nickname the Legion of Boom, which it encompassed the team's deep defense, although colloquially it was known to refer in this way to the entire defensive unit of the team from 2011 onwards. Other key players in the Legion of Boom were defensive ends Michael Bennett, Cliff Avril, and Frank Clark, along with tackles Brandon McBain, Jordan Hill, and Joran Reed. Already in 2013, the point of greatest excellence of the team was given. Many experts said it was the best season for a defensive team in league history. The Legion of Boom led the top 3 defensive departments that year. It was the team that allowed the fewest points with 231, the one that allowed the fewest yards with 4,378, and the one that caused the most turnovers with 39. It was the first team to dominate these 3 categories since the 1985 Chicago Bears. To this defensive dominance, it was added a perfect offensive execution, which reached a record of 13 wins and only 3 losses. In the playoffs, they dispatched the New Orleans Saints 23-15, while in the conference final, they faced their divisional rivals, the San Francisco 49ers, who had just lost the Super Bowl the previous year and were looking to access it for the second consecutive time. Seattle won 23-17, and Richard Sherman immortalized a play at the end of the game known to the media as the tip. Seattle led by 6, but San Francisco had the ball at the rivals' 18-yard line. The 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick looked for his receiver Michael Crabtree in the end zone, but the pass was deflected by Sherman, falling into the hands of Malcolm Smith, making an interception that will be enough for Seattle to reach the Super Bowl for the second time in its history.
Well, I'm the best corner in the game. When you try me with a sorry receiver like Crabtree, that's the result you're gonna get. Don't you ever talk about me.
In the decisive game, they would have to face Peyton Manning's Denver Broncos in New York. The game was absolute dominance from start to finish for Pete Carroll's men, who won their first and so far the only NFL title for the franchise after crushing the Colorado team 43-8. Malcolm Smith was named the most valuable player of the game after returning an interception for a touchdown and causing a fumble. It was clear that if Seattle won the trophy, the MVP award would go to someone on the defense, and Malcolm Smith was the nominee. Despite failing to repeat that feat, the Seattle defense made a prominent name in the league. In addition, the team's fans, known as the 12th Man, broke ticket sales records in subsequent years and became famous for the noise they caused at home games. Going to Seattle against that defense was practically suicidal. In 2014, Seattle maintained the level of its years as champion and came very close to defending the title, but fell to the New England Patriots 28-24 with one of the most painful plays in history for the team's fans.
Pass is intercepted at the goal line.
The team also made the playoffs in 2015 and 2016, but it was unable to play a Super Bowl again. Brandon Browner left the team in 2013 to play for the Patriots, being Super Bowl champion against his former team in his first season alongside Tom Brady, while Byron Maxwell played in that Super Bowl his last game with the Seahawks. He would be a new player for the Philadelphia Eagles. In 2017 instead, the Legion of Boom dismantled, losing both Richard Sherman, who was cut from the team and migrated to San Francisco, and Cam Chancellor, whom the team also cut after failing a physical test due to a neck injury. Chancellor would never play in the NFL again, and his formal on-court retirement occurred in 2017 at the age of 28. The last man from the official Legion of Boom lineup left on the team was Earl Thomas, who left the team in 2018 to play for the Baltimore Ravens. That was the end of an era in Seattle. A 7-year era in which the team achieved 6 consecutive winning seasons, 3 divisional titles, 2 conference titles, and a Super Bowl ring. Additionally, the Seahawks made the playoffs in 5 consecutive seasons, winning postseason games each time. Today, despite not having the founding players, that great defense is still remembered every time the current formation makes a great play. If there's one thing the city can be sure of, it's that in 2010, a man changed the history of football in the region and took it to a whole different level.